The champagne flute slipped from Harper Bennett's fingers, tumbling in slow motion toward the marble floor of the Grand Riviera Hotel ballroom before a strong hand caught it midair. "Careful," the man said, his voice deep and steady as he handed the glass back to her. "These events can be overwhelming." Harper looked up into warm, hazel eyes framed by dark lashes, her cheeks flushing as she accepted the champagne. "Thank you. I'm not usually this clumsy. It's my first time at one of these hospital fundraisers. First time." He studied her with genuine interest, not the glazed-over politeness she had encountered from most guests that evening. "Are you in medicine? Physical therapy?" Harper said, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "I work with pediatric patients at Children's Memorial. My supervisor insisted I attend tonight, said it would be good for networking." She glanced around the glittering ballroom filled with designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. "I feel like I borrowed my way into the wrong tax bracket." The man laughed, a genuine sound that made her smile despite her discomfort. "I think you're in exactly the right place. I'm Yates Irwin, Harper Bennett." She shook his offered hand, noting the confident grip and the way his entire focus seemed centered on her, as if they were not standing in a room with 300 other people. Yates was striking without being classically handsome. His features were strong, masculine, with a jaw that suggested determination and eyes that held both intelligence and something softer, more approachable. He stood tall, his broad shoulders filling out his tuxedo in a way that spoke of regular physical activity rather than vanity. "So Harper Bennett, pediatric physical therapist," Yates said, still holding her hand a moment longer than necessary. "Tell me why you really look like you want to escape through the nearest exit." Harper laughed, surprised by his directness. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who has spent more time than he would like at events exactly like this one." Yates gestured toward the French doors leading to a balcony. "Want some air?" The April evening was mild, and the balcony overlooked the city lights stretching toward the harbor. Harper breathed deeply, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease. "Better?" Yates asked, leaning against the stone railing beside her. "Much. Thank you for the rescue." Harper sipped her champagne, studying him from the corner of her eye. He seemed comfortable in the tuxedo, but also somehow separate from the wealth displayed inside. "You said you have been to a lot of these fundraisers." "More than I can count," Yates admitted. "They tend to blur together after a while, but this one is important. Children's Memorial does incredible work." "They do," Harper agreed with enthusiasm. "I have been there for 3 years, and every day I see kids make progress that seemed impossible. Like this little girl, Emma, she's 6 and came to us after a car accident left her with significant leg injuries. Doctors were not sure she would walk normally again, but she's stubborn." Harper smiled at the memory. "Yesterday she ran down the hallway to show me she could do it. Her mom cried, I cried, it was a whole thing." Yates watched her as she spoke, and Harper felt the intensity of his attention like a physical thing. "You love what you do." "I do," Harper said simply. "It does not pay much and the hours can be brutal, but I cannot imagine doing anything else." "That's rare," Yates said. "Most people I meet spend more time complaining about their work than doing it." "What do you do?" Harper asked, realizing she had been talking about herself without learning anything about him. "I run a company," Yates said, his tone casual. "We do manufacturing mostly." "It's not particularly exciting dinner conversation." "More exciting than physical therapy exercises," Harper teased. "Significantly less important," Yates countered. "What you do changes lives directly. What I do just keeps the economy moving." Before Harper could respond, a woman in a shimmering silver gown stepped onto the balcony. "Yates, they need you inside for the donor presentation. You are the keynote, remember? Yates sighed but nodded. Of course. I will be right there. He turned back to Harper as the woman retreated. I have to go make a speech about the importance of charitable giving to people who could buy small countries. Will you stay? I was planning to leave soon, Harper admitted. Early shift tomorrow. Don't, Yates said, and there was something almost urgent in his voice. Please. I would really like to continue this conversation. Harper found herself nodding before she consciously decided to stay. Okay. Yates smiled, transforming his face from striking to genuinely handsome. Thank you. I will find you after. Harper watched him disappear inside, wondering what had just happened. She had come to this fundraiser out of obligation, expecting a tedious evening of small talk and overpriced food. Instead, she had met someone who made her feel seen in a way that was both thrilling and slightly terrifying. Inside, Harper found a seat near the back as the lights dimmed for the presentation. A hospital administrator took the stage, thanking everyone for their generous support before introducing the keynote speaker. Our next guest needs no introduction, but I will give him one anyway. Yates Irwin is the CEO of Irwin Industries, one of the largest manufacturing conglomerates in the country. Under his leadership, the company has expanded into renewable energy, sustainable materials, and innovative medical equipment production. He is also one of Children's Memorial's most generous supporters, having donated over $50 million to our facility in the past 5 years alone. Please welcome Yates Irwin. Harper felt her stomach drop as Yates walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. $50 million. CEO of a conglomerate. She looked down at her borrowed dress, a simple navy number she had picked up from a consignment shop, and felt profoundly foolish. He had not mentioned any of that. Had let her ramble about her work, about Emma's progress, as if they were equals meeting at a coffee shop rather than a fundraiser where he was apparently the main attraction. Yates spoke about the importance of investing in children's health care, about his own niece who had been treated at Children's Memorial after a premature birth, about seeing the dedication of the staff firsthand. He was articulate and passionate, and every word made Harper more convinced she had completely misread their interaction. Men like Yates Irwin did not genuinely connect with pediatric physical therapists at fundraisers. They were polite, they networked, they moved on. As soon as the presentation ended and people began milling about again, Harper headed for the exit. She would send her supervisor an email saying she had not felt well, that she had made an appearance but needed to leave early. It would not be entirely a lie. Her stomach was churning with embarrassment. Harper. She turned to find Yates weaving through the crowd toward her, his expression concerned. You are leaving. It was not a question. I have that early shift, Harper said, aiming for casual and landing somewhere near awkward. I upset you. Yates moved closer, lowering his voice. By not mentioning who I was. Harper met his eyes, those warm, hazel eyes that had made her feel like the most interesting person in the room. You let me go on about my job like we were on the same level. We are on the same level, Yates said firmly. You save kids mobility and give them their lives back. I sign checks and attend meetings, which sounds more valuable to you. That's not the same thing, and you know it, Harper said, frustrated. You donated $50 million to the hospital where I work. You run a conglomerate. You probably have people whose entire job is to manage your calendar. 3 people, actually, Yates said, and when Harper glared at him, he held up his hands. Sorry, bad joke. Harper, I did not mention my company because when I tell people what I do, the conversation changes. They either want something from me, or they start treating me like I am made of glass and money. You talk to me like I was just a person. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Harper wanted to stay angry, but his sincerity was difficult to ignore. "You still should have told me." "You are right," Yates agreed. "I should have. I am sorry. Can I make it up to you?" "How?" "Have coffee with me tomorrow after your shift. Somewhere completely unglamorous where I can sit across from you and continue learning about Emma's progress and why you decided to become a physical therapist." Harper studied him, looking for signs of insincerity or obligation. She found none. "Why?" "Because in the 15 minutes we talked on that balcony, I felt more engaged than I have in months," Yates said simply. "Because you made me laugh and you clearly have no interest in my money or my company, which is so refreshing I cannot even tell you. Because I would really, really like to get to know you better." Harper felt her resistance crumbling. Just coffee, Yates agreed, pulling out his phone. "Can I have your number?" She recited it, watching him save it under her name with no title or company affiliation, just Harper Bennett. "Text me the address of wherever you want to meet, somewhere near the hospital works. I will pick you up after your shift," Yates offered. "No," Harper said quickly. "I will meet you there. I barely know you." Yates nodded, accepting the boundary without argument. "Fair enough. Joe's Diner on 5th Street, 5:30 tomorrow. That works." Harper shifted her purse strap on her shoulder, suddenly anxious to leave before she said something else awkward. "I should go. Good night, Harper." The way Yates said her name made something flutter in her chest. "Good night." Harper made it to her car before pulling out her phone and searching Yates Irwin. The results were overwhelming. Articles about business deals, charity work, and his rise to CEO after his father's retirement 3 years ago. His estimated net worth was listed as $5.3 billion. Billion. With a B. Harper dropped her phone onto the passenger seat and pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. She had just agreed to have coffee with a billionaire. An actual Forbes list billionaire who had caught her champagne glass and listened to her talk about pediatric physical therapy like it was the most fascinating subject in the world. This was insane. But even as Harper started her car and headed home to her modest apartment in a neighborhood that definitely did not have marble lobbies, she could not stop thinking about the way Yates had looked at her. Like she mattered. Like he genuinely wanted to know her. Maybe one coffee would not hurt. The next day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Harper worked with Emma, who was continuing to make remarkable progress, then spent an hour with twins recovering from corrective leg surgery. She grabbed a granola bar for lunch and spent her afternoon helping a teenage boy regain strength after a sports injury. "You seem distracted," her colleague Marcus observed as they updated patient files at the end of the shift. "Just tired," Harper lied. "Right." Marcus did not look convinced. "How was the fundraiser?" "It was fine. Lots of rich people, decent food." "Did you meet anyone interesting?" Harper thought about Yates, about his hands catching her champagne glass and the way his entire face changed when he smiled. "Maybe." Marcus perked up. "Oh, this sounds promising." "Tell me everything." "There is nothing to tell. I am having coffee with someone, that's all." "Someone from the fundraiser." "Harper, please tell me you are dating a doctor. My faith in workplace romance needs this." "Not a doctor," Harper said, logging out of her computer. "And it is not dating. It is just coffee." She changed in the staff locker room, swapping her scrubs for jeans and a soft green sweater that brought out her eyes. She had debated wearing something nicer but decided against it. This was not a date. This was coffee with someone who happened to be a billionaire, but was hopefully also just a regular person beneath the net worth. Joe's Diner was a neighborhood institution, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a menu that had not changed since 1985. Harper had eaten there countless times, enjoying their surprisingly good pie and bottomless coffee. Yates was already there, sitting in a corner booth and looking completely out of place in his tailored suit. He stood when he saw her, that genuine smile spreading across his face. "You found it," Harper said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Your directions were excellent." Yates gestured to the laminated menu. "What's good here?" "Everything, honestly, but their coffee is the real star." A waitress appeared and they ordered 2 coffees and a slice of apple pie to share. Yates loosened his tie, looking more relaxed than he had in his tuxedo the night before. "How was your shift?" he asked. Harper found herself telling him about Emma's latest achievement, about the twins who kept trying to race each other down the hallway despite their doctor's orders, about the teenager who was frustrated with his slow progress, but pushing through anyway. "You remember all their names," Yates observed, "all their stories." "Of course I do. They are my patients. I have 300 employees in my main office building and I maybe know 50 names," Yates admitted. "You know every kid you work with personally. That's different. You run a company." Still, Yates accepted his coffee from the waitress with a thank you. "It says something about you." They talked for 2 hours, the conversation flowing easily from her work to his, from her small-town upbringing in rural Connecticut to his childhood in Manhattan, from favorite books to terrible movies they secretly loved. "I should confess something," Yates said as they were finishing their second slices of pie. "The first had been so good they ordered more. I had my assistant research you after the fundraiser." Harper set down her fork. "You did?" "Not in a creepy way," Yates added quickly. "Just your basic credentials, where you went to school, how long you have been at Children's Memorial. I wanted to make sure you were who you said you were. And you graduated top of your class from Boston University, turned down a position at a prestigious sports medicine clinic to work with kids, and your supervisor says you are the best therapist on staff." Yates leaned forward. "You could be making 3 times what you earn now at a private practice." "I know," Harper said, "but I would not be working with kids who need me most. Rich athletes can afford any therapist. Emma and kids like her need someone who will fight for them." Yates looked at her like she was something precious and rare. "You are remarkable." Harper felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I am just doing my job." "No, you are doing a lot more than that." Yates reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of hers. "Can I see you again? And not just for coffee. An actual date." Harper hesitated. Everything about this felt impossible. She lived paycheck to paycheck, sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate. Yates probably had homes in multiple countries. What could they possibly have in common beyond good conversation? But then she remembered how he listened when she talked, how he made her laugh, how he had admitted he was tired of people treating him differently because of his wealth. "Okay," Harper said. "One date. Saturday night. I will pick you up this time if that is okay." Harper nodded, writing her address on a napkin. "Nothing too fancy. I am a physical therapist, remember? My wardrobe tops out at business casual." "I know the perfect place," Yates promised. Their first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, the kind of family-owned place where the owner's mother was still making pasta in the back kitchen. Yates wore jeans and a button-down shirt, and Harper wore a simple black dress she had owned for years. They shared carbonara and debated the merits of different pizza styles, with Harper defending Connecticut's a pizza tradition and Yates arguing for classic New York slices. They disagreed about whether movies should have happy endings, agreed that most vegetables were better roasted than steamed, and discovered they both had secret addictions to reality cooking competitions. "My guilty pleasure is watching people compete to make elaborate cakes," Yates confessed over tiramisu. There is something soothing about watching someone ice a 7-tier wedding cake at 2 in the morning when I cannot sleep. You have insomnia? Harper asked. Sometimes. Occupational hazard of running a company. My brain does not always turn off when I want it to. Have you tried progressive muscle relaxation? It is a technique I teach my patients, but it works for stress too. Yates smiled. Are you offering to be my therapist? No, Harper said firmly. But I could teach you some basic techniques, if you wanted. I would like that. They walked through Brooklyn after dinner, the spring evening warm and full of the sounds of the city coming alive for the weekend. Yates kept a respectful distance but stayed close enough that their arms occasionally brushed, sending little sparks of electricity through Harper each time they touched. Can I ask you something? Harper said as they paused at a crosswalk. Anything. Why me? You could date anyone. Models, actresses, other CEOs. Why are you interested in a physical therapist from Connecticut who owns maybe 3 dresses and thinks eating out at Joe's Diner is a treat? Yates turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Because you are real, Harper. Because when you talk about your work, your eyes light up and I can see how much you care. Because you made me laugh on a balcony at a fundraiser I was dreading and you did not even know who I was. Because when I am with you, I am just Yates. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the guy everyone wants something from, just me. He paused. Is that enough of a reason? Harper felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Yeah, she said softly. That is enough. Yates walked her to her apartment building, a 4-story walk-up in a neighborhood that was gentrifying but not quite gentrified. He did not comment on the graffiti by the entrance or the broken intercom, just waited while she unlocked the outer door. I had a really good time tonight, Harper said, turning to face him on the stoop. Me too. Yates reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture so gentle it made her breath catch. Can I call you tomorrow? I would like that. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek. Good night, Harper. Good night, Yates. Harper climbed the 3 flights to her apartment in a daze, letting herself in quietly so as not to wake her roommate, Becca. But Becca was still up, sitting on the couch with a pint of ice cream and a home improvement show playing on their tiny television. How was the date? Becca asked, muting the TV. Really good, Harper admitted, dropping onto the couch beside her. Like surprisingly good. Tell me everything. Becca handed her a spoon and Harper dug into the ice cream while recounting the evening. Wait, Becca said, setting down the pint. Yates Irwin. As in Irwin Industries Yates Irwin. You know who he is. Harper, everyone knows who he is. He is like Forbes' top 100 rich people. He is always in the business section. Becca grabbed her phone, pulling up several articles. This is the guy you had coffee with. Harper looked at the photos, images of Yates at various events, always in expensive suits, often with beautiful women on his arm. Her stomach twisted. Yeah, that is him. Harper, this is huge. You are dating a literal billionaire. I am not dating him. We went on 1 date. 1 date so far, Becca corrected. Did he kiss you on the cheek? That is weirdly old-fashioned and kind of sweet. Becca studied her friend. You really like him. I barely know him, Harper protested, but even she could hear the lack of conviction in her voice. But you want to know him. Harper took another spoonful of ice cream, buying time to think. He is not what I expected. He is kind and funny, and he actually listens when I talk. But Becca, look at him. She gestured to the phone screen showing Yates at some gala, looking like he belonged in a fashion magazine. And then look at me. I am a physical therapist who splits an apartment and drives a car held together by duct tape and optimism. This does not make sense. Maybe it does not have to make sense, Becca said gently. Maybe you just have to see where it goes. Over the next month, Harper saw where it went, and the answer was amazing and terrifying in equal measure. Yates called when he said he would. He texted good morning and asked about her day. He showed up with coffee before her early shifts and never complained when she had to cancel plans because of a patient emergency. They went to museums and argued good-naturedly about modern art. They saw a terrible action movie and a brilliant independent film. They discovered a shared love of bookstores and spent an entire Saturday browsing a massive used bookshop in Manhattan, emerging with a stack of novels each. Yates was attentive without being overbearing, respectful of her space and her boundaries. He held her hand while they walked, kissed her goodnight with increasing passion but never pushed for more than she was ready to give. And Harper found herself falling for him, hard and fast and completely against her better judgment. "I am in trouble," she told Marcus during a lunch break 6 weeks after the fundraiser. "Good trouble or bad trouble? Both." Harper picked at her salad. "I am falling for Yates and I do not know how this ends well." "Why does it have to end?" "Because he is a billionaire CEO and I am a physical therapist. Because his world and my world do not overlap except for random chance at a fundraiser. Because eventually he is going to realize I do not fit into his life." Marcus set down his sandwich. "Has he done anything to make you think that?" "No," Harper admitted. "The opposite, actually. He keeps finding ways to fit into my world. He came to Emma's birthday party last week at the hospital and spent 2 hours playing games with pediatric patients. He knows all their names now." "That sounds like a guy who is pretty invested in your life," Marcus observed. "That is what scares me." That fear crystallized into something sharper the following week when Yates invited her to a company event. "It is our annual shareholder dinner," Yates explained over the phone. "I know it is not your scene, but I would really love it if you came. As my date, officially." Harper hesitated. They had been seeing each other for almost 2 months, but this felt like a step into his world in a way that made her nervous. "I do not know if I have anything appropriate to wear to a shareholder dinner. I can help with that if you want. I can send over a stylist, or we could go shopping together, or—" "No," Harper said quickly. The idea of Yates buying her clothes felt like crossing a line. "I will figure it out." She borrowed a cocktail dress from Becca, a deep burgundy number that was a size too big but passable with the right belt and shoes. She felt like an imposter walking into the private event space at one of Manhattan's most exclusive hotels, but Yates was there immediately, his face lighting up when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said, kissing her cheek. "You look like you belong here," Harper countered, taking in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. "I would rather be anywhere else," Yates admitted, "but since I have to be here, I am glad you are with me." The evening was exactly as uncomfortable as Harper had feared. The other attendees were wealthy investors and board members, people who casually discussed stock portfolios and vacation homes. They were polite to Harper but clearly curious, their eyes assessing her dress, her shoes, her lack of jewelry. "So you work at Children's Memorial?" one woman asked, her tone suggesting she was confirming Harper's employment rather than making conversation. "Yes, I am a physical therapist there." "How nice." The woman's smile did not reach her eyes. "That must be very rewarding." It was the kind of dismissal that made Harper feel invisible, and she excused herself to the bathroom just to have a moment alone. She was washing her hands when another woman entered, someone Harper recognized from the photographs on Yates's company website. Victoria something, a board member. "You are Yates's new girlfriend," Victoria said, refreshing her lipstick in the mirror. "Harper," she introduced herself. "I know who you are." Victoria capped her lipstick. "I just wonder if you know what you are getting into." "Excuse me." "Yates is a good man, but his life is complicated." His company, his responsibilities, the expectations that come with his name. Women have tried before to navigate that world. It rarely ends well for them. Harper felt anger flare in her chest. I am not trying to navigate anything. I am just here supporting my boyfriend. Of course. Victoria's smile was sharp. Just some friendly advice. This world eats people alive if they are not prepared for it. Harper left the bathroom feeling shaken. She found Yates talking with a group of investors and waited at the edge of the conversation, suddenly hyper-aware of her borrowed dress and second-hand shoes. Yates noticed her immediately, excusing himself from the group. "Hey, are you okay? You look upset. Can we leave?" Harper asked quietly. "Absolutely." Yates did not ask for an explanation, just took her hand and led her toward the exit, stopping only to make brief apologies to the host. They were in his car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Harper made in 3 years, before he spoke again. What happened? Harper told him about the conversation with Victoria, about feeling out of place and judged and fundamentally inadequate. "Victoria is a bitter woman who has been on the board since my father's time," Yates said, his voice tight with anger. "She has never approved of anyone I have dated, including the Harvard MBA who came from old money. It is not about you, Harper. It is about her need to control everything in my business and my life." "But she is right, though," Harper said, staring at her hands. "Your world and my world are completely different. I do not know how to navigate shareholder dinners and board members. I do not know the right things to say or where or how to make people like that take me seriously." "I do not care if they take you seriously," Yates said fiercely. "I care if you take yourself seriously. I care that you are the most passionate, dedicated, genuine person I have ever met. I care that you make me laugh and challenge me and make me want to be better. The rest of it, the money and the events and the expectations, none of that matters compared to how I feel about you." Harper looked up at him, seeing the intensity in his eyes, the way his jaw was set with determination. "How do you feel about me?" "I am falling in love with you," Yates said simply. "I have been falling since the moment you almost dropped that champagne glass and looked at me like I was just a person, not a net worth or a company name. I am falling in love with the way you care about your patients, the way you get excited about books, the way you eat pie like it is the best thing you have ever tasted. I am falling in love with you, Harper, and I do not care what Victoria or anyone else thinks about it." Harper felt tears prick her eyes. "I am falling in love with you too," she whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Why? Because what if it is not enough? What if the differences between us are too big to overcome?" Yates reached out, cupping her face in his hands. "Then we will figure it out together. But Harper, please do not give up on this before we even try." She kissed him then, pouring all her fear and hope and love into the press of her lips against his. Yates responded immediately, one hand sliding into her hair while the other pulled her closer across the center console. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Harper rested her forehead against his. "Take me home." "Your place or mine?" Yates asked. "Yours," Harper decided. "I want to see where you live." Yates's apartment was a penthouse in a building with a doorman and an elevator that required a key. The space was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and furniture that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. "This is where you live?" Harper asked, walking slowly through the living room. "When I am not traveling for work, yes." Yates watched her nervously. "It is too much, I know. I keep meaning to downsize, but it is beautiful," Harper interrupted. "Really beautiful, but it does not look like anyone lives here." Yates glanced around, seeing the space through her eyes. She was right. Everything was pristine, carefully arranged, more showroom than home. "I guess I am not here enough to make it messy." "That is sad," Harper said honestly. "Yeah," Yates agreed. It is. They stood in the middle of his enormous living room, the city lights glittering behind them, and Harper felt the weight of all their differences pressing down. But she also felt the truth of what Yates had said in the car, the depth of emotion between them that was real and rare and worth fighting for. "I want this to work," she said quietly, "but I do not know how." "We take it one day at a time," Yates said, crossing to her and taking both her hands in his. "We talk when things are hard. We do not let other people's opinions matter more than our own feelings. We trust each other." "That's simple. That complicated," Yates corrected with a slight smile. "But we try." Harper nodded. "Okay, we try." They spent the night talking, curled together on Yates's couch with the city spread out below them. Harper told him about her fears, about growing up with parents who struggled financially, and her determination never to rely on anyone else for money. Yates told her about the pressure of taking over his father's company, about feeling like he was always being judged and found wanting. "My father built Irwin Industries from nothing," Yates said, his voice quiet. "He was brilliant and ruthless and completely consumed by the company. I have spent 3 years trying to live up to his legacy while also doing things differently, more ethically, more sustainably. Sometimes I think I am failing at both." "You are not failing," Harper said firmly. "The work you have done with renewable energy, the medical equipment innovations, the charitable giving, that is all you. That is making a real difference." "That means a lot coming from you," Yates said, kissing the top of her head. Harper dozed off eventually, her head on Yates's shoulder, feeling safe and uncertain in equal measure. The next few months were a learning curve for both of them. Harper met Yates's family, including his parents who had retired to Connecticut, and his younger sister Lily, who was an environmental lawyer. "I like her," Lily announced after spending an afternoon with Harper at a botanical garden. "She is normal, and she does not let you get away with anything." "I like her too," Yates agreed, watching Harper photograph flowers with intense concentration. "Do not mess this up," Lily warned. "She is good for you." Yates introduced Harper to his business partners and key executives, making it clear she was important to him. He attended more of her work events, including a fundraiser run Harper participated in to benefit the hospital. "You do not have to do this," Harper said the morning of the run. "It is 5 kilometers and it starts at 7 in the morning on a Saturday." "I want to," Yates insisted, lacing up running shoes that looked suspiciously new. "I support you, remember." He finished the run looking slightly worse for wear but proud, and Harper kissed him in front of all her colleagues, no longer caring who knew about their relationship. But there were still moments of friction, of clashing worlds and different expectations, like when Yates casually suggested they take a weekend trip to Paris. "Paris," Harper repeated, "as in France. I have a meeting there on Thursday. We could fly out Wednesday night. I will do the meeting Friday morning, and then we would have the whole weekend. I will show you all my favorite places." "Yates, I cannot just fly to Paris for the weekend. I have patients scheduled, and I do not have the money for a trip like that." "I would pay for everything," Yates said, not understanding why this was a problem. "I know you would, and that is the issue. I cannot let you pay for expensive trips. It feels like you are buying me." "That is not what I am doing," Yates said, frustrated. "I want to share experiences with you." "I have the means to do that. Why is it wrong to use those means?" "Because it makes us unequal," Harper tried to explain. "You pay for everything, and I am just along for the ride. That is not a partnership." They did not go to Paris. Instead, they spent the weekend at a bed and breakfast in the Berkshires, splitting the cost and hiking mountain trails. It was lovely, but Harper could see the frustration in Yates's eyes when she insisted on paying for her half. "I am trying to understand," Yates said on the drive home. But I do not know how to be with someone who does not want me to take care of them in the ways I am capable of. I do not need you to take care of me, Harper said. I need you to be my partner, my equal, even though our bank accounts look nothing alike. But we are not equal in that way, Yates pointed out. I have money, a lot of it. That is just reality. I know, Harper said quietly, but I need to feel like I bring something to this relationship besides being someone you spend money on. You bring everything, Yates said fiercely. You bring laughter and perspective and groundedness. You remind me why I do what I do. You make me happier than I have been in years. That has nothing to do with money. Harper wanted to believe him, but the doubt lingered. Things came to a head 8 months into their relationship when Yates's father had a heart attack. Harper was with a patient when Yates called, his voice shaking. My dad is in the hospital. They are saying it was a major cardiac event. I am heading to Greenwich now. I will meet you there, Harper said immediately. You do not have to, I am coming, Harper said firmly. Text me the hospital name. She found Yates in the cardiac waiting room with Lily and his mother, an elegant woman who looked like she had aged 10 years in the past hour. Harper went straight to Yates, wrapping her arms around him. Any news? She asked. He is in surgery, Lily said. They are doing a triple bypass. It will be hours. Harper stayed with them through the long afternoon and into the evening. She got coffee and food that no one ate. She held Yates's hand and listened to his mother's stories about meeting his father 40 years ago. She was just there, a steady presence in the chaos. When the surgeon finally emerged to say the operation had been successful but recovery would be long, Yates buried his face against Harper's shoulder and shook with relief. Thank you for being here, he whispered. Where else would I be? They stayed at the hospital until Yates's father was moved to recovery and they could see him briefly. The older man looked frail and gray against the white sheets, but he managed a weak smile when he saw his family. You scared us, Dad, Yates said, his voice rough with emotion. Sorry about that, his father rasped. Not my best moment. Harper drove Yates home that night, him being too exhausted and emotionally drained to do it safely. She stayed with him in his penthouse, holding him while he finally let himself fall apart. I could have lost him, Yates said into the darkness of his bedroom. I have been so focused on the company and trying to live up to his legacy that I have barely seen him in the past year. What if I never got to tell him how much he means to me? But you did not lose him, Harper said gently. He is going to recover, and you will have time to tell him everything. How do you always know what to say? I do not, Harper admitted. But I know what it is like to be scared of losing someone important. My dad had a stroke when I was in college. He recovered, but it changed my perspective on what matters. People matter, Yates. Relationships matter. Everything else is just details. Yates pulled her closer, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was desperate and grateful and full of love. They made love for the first time that night, a slow and tender joining that felt like a promise. Afterward, tangled together in his sheets, Yates traced patterns on Harper's bare shoulder. I love you, he said. I am in love with you, completely, terrifyingly, irrevocably in love with you. I love you too, Harper whispered. I want you in my life permanently, Yates continued. I want to wake up next to you and come home to you and build something real together. I know we have our differences, but Harper, this past 8 months has been the best of my life. You make me want to be the man you see when you look at me. You are that man, Harper said, emotion clogging her throat. You have always been that man. Yates's father's recovery was slow but steady. Harper visited him in the hospital, bringing stories about her patients that made the older man laugh. She helped coordinate his care with the hospital staff, using her connections to ensure he had the best physical therapists for his cardiac rehab. You are good for my son, Yates's father told her during one visit. He needs someone who keeps him human. He is pretty human on his own, Harper said. You would be surprised how easy it is to forget that when you are drowning in quarterly reports and board meetings, the older man said. I lost myself in that company for years. I do not want Yates to make the same mistakes. I think he knows what matters, Harper said, glancing at Yates, who was talking with the physical therapist about his father's progress. Because he has you reminding him. As Yates's father recovered, Yates began reevaluating his priorities. He delegated more at work, trusting his executive team to handle day-to-day operations. He spent more time with his family, including regular dinners with his parents and sister. And he spent more time with Harper, integrating their lives in ways that felt natural and right. Harper kept her apartment with Becca, but spent most nights at Yates's place, her clothes gradually filling one side of his enormous closet. She brought plants and throw pillows, small touches that made the sterile penthouse feel more like a home. You are nesting, Becca observed when Harper asked to borrow her drill to hang some artwork in Yates's living room. I am not nesting, Harper protested. I am just making the place look lived in. You are nesting, Becca repeated with a grin. When is he going to propose? We have not talked about marriage. Harper, the man looks at you like you hung the moon. He is going to propose. Harper tried not to think about it, but the idea took root in her mind. What would marriage to Yates look like? Would she become one of those society wives who attended charity lunches and planned fundraisers? Would she have to give up her work? She was still wrestling with these questions when Yates surprised her with a weekend trip to Vermont. Just a cabin in the woods, he promised. Very low-key, no fancy dinners or events. The cabin turned out to be a beautiful timber frame house on a lake, but it was cozy and private and perfect. They spent Saturday hiking and swimming, then grilling dinner on the deck as the sun set over the water. I have been thinking about something, Yates said as they sat watching the stars emerge. What? My father's heart attack made me realize how much time I waste on things that do not matter. Board meetings and shareholder dinners and maintaining appearances for people whose opinions I do not care about. Yates turned to face her. You know what does matter? This, us, building a life with someone I love. Harper felt her heart start to race. Yates, I know we have had our struggles, Yates continued. I know the money thing is complicated and our worlds are different, but Harper, I have never been more certain of anything than I am of my love for you. You have made me happier, more grounded, more myself than I have been in my entire life. I do not want to spend another day without knowing you are mine and I am yours. Yates stood and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, dropping to one knee on the deck. Harper's vision blurred with tears as he opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the starlight. Harper Bennett, will you marry me? Harper stared at him, at this incredible man who had stumbled into her life at a fundraiser and changed everything. This brilliant, kind, sometimes frustrating man who loved her despite all the reasons they should not work, who fought for them when it would have been easier to walk away. You cannot be serious, she said, but she was already nodding, already reaching for him. I have never been more serious about anything in my life, Yates said, his voice rough with emotion. Yes, Harper said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, of course I will marry you. Yates slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like tears and joy and promise. Harper wrapped her arms around his neck, feeling the solid warmth of him, the reality of this moment that felt both surreal and absolutely right. I love you, she said against his lips. I love you, Yates echoed. So much. They spent the rest of the weekend in a bubble of happiness, making plans and dreaming about their future. Yates wanted a relatively small wedding, just close friends and family. Harper wanted to keep working, and Yates supported that completely. "I fell in love with a passionate pediatric physical therapist," he said. "I would never ask you to give that up." They told Yates's family first. His parents were thrilled, his mother immediately planning engagement parties and discussing wedding venues. Lily hugged Harper fiercely. "Welcome to the family," she said. "Officially." Harper called her own parents, who were surprised but supportive. Her mother cried happy tears over the phone, and her father asked to meet Yates properly, to make sure he was good enough for his daughter. That meeting happened 2 weeks later at a restaurant Harper's parents chose, a modest Italian place in their Connecticut hometown. Yates wore jeans and a sweater, deliberately casual, and spent the evening asking Harper's father about his work as a high school history teacher and her mother about her volunteer work at the local library. "He is a good man," Harper's father told her as they said goodbye. "Different from what I expected, but good." "What did you expect?" Harper asked. "Someone arrogant, I suppose. Someone who thought his money made him better than everyone else. But Yates is not like that. He listened more than he talked, and he clearly adores you. That is what matters." The engagement period was 4 months of joyful chaos. There were engagement parties and family dinners and countless decisions about flowers and venues, and whether to have a band or a DJ. Through it all, Yates remained steadfast and present, taking time off work to attend tastings and meet with planners. "I want to be involved," he insisted when Harper suggested he did not need to come to the florist appointment. "This is our wedding, not just yours." They chose a venue in the Berkshires, an old estate with gardens and mountain views. The guest list topped out at 150, a compromise between Yates's need to invite key business associates and Harper's desire for an intimate celebration. "I do not even know 150 people," Harper said, looking at the list. "Then we will cut it down," Yates said immediately. They ended up with 90 guests, mostly family and close friends. Yates's business partners would come, but the evening was focused on the people who truly mattered to them both. Emma, Harper's former patient who was now walking without assistance, would be the flower girl. Marcus from the hospital would give a reading. Lily was Harper's maid of honor with Becca as a bridesmaid. "I still cannot believe you are marrying a billionaire," Becca said during a dress fitting. "It is like a romance novel come to life." "I am not marrying a billionaire," Harper corrected. "I am marrying Yates. The money is just an unfortunate side effect." "An unfortunate side effect that comes with a sapphire engagement ring and a fairy tale wedding," Becca teased. Harper looked down at her ring, which she still was not quite used to wearing. "I would marry him if he had nothing. The rest of it is just noise." The wedding day was perfect. Autumn in the Berkshires, the mountains ablaze with color and the air crisp and clear. Harper wore a simple but elegant dress, lace and silk that made her feel beautiful without being over the top. Her hair was down in loose waves with small flowers tucked behind one ear. "You look like a fairy tale," her mother said, tears streaming down her face. "Do not make me cry," Harper warned. "I will ruin my makeup." But she cried anyway when she walked down the aisle and saw Yates waiting for her, his expression so full of love and awe that it took her breath away. She cried during their vows, when Yates promised to love and support her dreams, to be her partner in all things, to never let the world they lived in change what they meant to each other. She cried when he said, "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, and I will spend the rest of my life proving I am worthy of your love." "You already have," Harper whispered, and then they were kissing and everyone was applauding and they were married. The reception was a joyful celebration, full of dancing and laughter and toasts that ranged from heartfelt to hilarious. Emma gave Harper a drawing she had made of the two of them, a stick figure, physical therapist and patient holding hands. Marcus told embarrassing stories about Harper's early days at the hospital. Lily talked about how Harper had brought out the best in her brother, had reminded him what truly mattered. Yates's father, fully recovered and looking healthier than he had in years, stood to make a toast. "I built Irwin Industries to provide for my family and create something lasting," he said. "But I sacrificed a lot along the way. Time with my wife, time with my children, balance in my life. I see my son making different choices, better choices. He has built a successful company while also building a life full of love and meaning. That is because of the woman he married today. Harper, you have given our family a gift by loving my son so completely. Thank you for reminding him and all of us what truly matters." Harper was crying again, and Yates handed her his handkerchief with a gentle smile. "I love you," he murmured, and she leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of her husband, this man who had proposed on a balcony and proved every day since that he meant every word. They honeymooned in Italy. 2 weeks of exploring ancient cities and eating incredible food, and simply being together without the pressures of work or family or expectations. Yates showed Harper all his favorite places in Rome and Florence. They got lost in Venice and did not care. They drank wine in Tuscany and talked about their future, about the life they wanted to build together. "I want kids," Yates said one evening as they watched the sunset from their hotel balcony. "At least 2, maybe 3. I want family dinners and chaos and to see you as a mother." "I want that too," Harper said, "but not right away. I want a few years of just us first. That works for me." Yates pulled her close, his arms around her waist. "I am in no rush. I just want to spend my life with you however that unfolds." They returned to New York and settled into married life. Harper moved completely into the penthouse, which they started renovating to make it feel more like home. They knocked down walls and added warmth, turning the sterile showroom into a space that reflected both of them. Work continued for both. Harper was promoted to senior physical therapist and began mentoring new staff members. Yates navigated his company through a major expansion into renewable energy, a project he was deeply passionate about. They had disagreements, like any couple. About whose turn it was to do the dishes, about how much time to spend with in-laws, about whether to get a dog immediately or wait until they had a less hectic schedule. "We are getting a dog," Harper insisted after 6 months of marriage. "A big one that can go on hikes with us." They ended up with a golden retriever puppy they named Copper, who was chaos and joy in equal measure and who forced them both to be more present at home. 2 years into their marriage, Harper found out she was pregnant. She took the test at home, alone on a random Tuesday morning before work. When the positive result appeared, she sat on the bathroom floor and cried happy, terrified tears. She told Yates that evening, presenting him with a tiny pair of baby shoes she had picked up on her lunch break. Yates stared at the shoes, then at Harper, his expression cycling through confusion, understanding, and pure joy in the space of seconds. "You are pregnant." "I am pregnant," Harper confirmed, nervous about his reaction. Yates let out a whoop of excitement and picked her up, spinning her around the kitchen. "We are having a baby." "Put me down," Harper laughed. "I might throw up on you. Morning sickness is apparently not just a morning thing." Pregnancy was hard for Harper. The morning sickness lasted well into the 2nd trimester, and she struggled with the exhaustion that came with growing a human while maintaining her demanding job. Yates was patient and supportive, bringing her ginger ale and crackers, rubbing her swollen feet, attending every doctor's appointment. "You are growing our child," he said when Harper apologized for being cranky and tired. "You are allowed to feel however you feel." They found out they were having a girl, and Yates cried in the ultrasound room, holding Harper's hand as they watched their daughter move on the screen. "She is perfect," he whispered. "She is the size of an avocado," Harper said, but she was crying too. They decorated a nursery in soft greens and yellows, arguing good-naturedly about whether to include a rocking chair or a glider. Yates's mother brought over boxes of his and Lily's baby clothes. Harper's parents visited and helped assemble furniture. Emma, now 10 and Harper's most dedicated former patient, was thrilled about the baby. "I am going to teach her how to be strong," Emma declared, "just like you taught me." Harper went into labor 3 days before her due date, in the middle of the night. Yates drove them to the hospital, and Harper joked through her contractions about how this was the least romantic date night they had ever had. Labor was long and difficult, 18 hours of exhausting work before their daughter finally arrived, screaming and perfect and absolutely worth every moment. "She has your nose," Harper said, exhausted and elated as she held their daughter for the first time. "She has your determination," Yates countered, watching his daughter grip his finger with surprising strength. "Look at that hold." They named her Rose after Harper's grandmother, with the middle name Eleanor after Yates's mother. Rose Irwin was beautiful and demanding, and changed their lives in ways both expected and surprising. Yates took paternity leave, something almost unheard of for a CEO, and spent 6 weeks learning how to change diapers and soothe a crying infant. He was terrible at first, all thumbs and uncertainty, but he learned quickly. Harper took 4 months of maternity leave, struggling with the transition from working full-time to being home with an infant. She loved Rose fiercely but also missed the satisfaction of her work, the sense of purpose that came from helping her patients. "I feel guilty," she confessed to Yates one night as Rose finally slept after hours of fussiness. "I love her so much, but I also miss my job." "What kind of mother does that make me? A human one," Yates said gently. "Harper, you can love our daughter and still miss your career. Those things are not mutually exclusive." "I know, but society says—" "Forget what society says," Yates interrupted. "You are an incredible mother and you are also an incredible physical therapist. When you are ready to go back to work, we will figure out childcare. I will adjust my schedule. We will make it work." They did make it work, though it was not always easy. Harper went back to work part-time when Rose was 4 months old, and they hired a nanny to help during the days. Harper pumped breast milk in a supply closet at the hospital and video called home during lunch breaks to see her daughter. Yates rearranged his schedule to be home for dinner most nights, delegating more and trusting his team to handle things without his constant oversight. He gave up the late-night work sessions and the constant travel, prioritizing time with his family over everything else. "My father missed so much of my childhood because he was always working," Yates told his board when they pushed back on his reduced hours. "I refuse to do the same to my daughter. If you cannot support that, then perhaps I am not the right person to lead this company." They supported it. Life settled into a new rhythm, one filled with sleepless nights and first smiles and the particular chaos that came with an infant. Harper and Yates navigated it together, leaning on each other through the exhaustion and the challenges. Rose grew into a bright, curious toddler with Harper's auburn hair and Yates's hazel eyes. She was stubborn and fearless, climbing everything and testing every boundary. "She is going to be a handful," Harper's mother observed during a visit when Rose was 2. "She already is," Harper agreed, watching her daughter try to convince the dog to let her ride him like a horse. "But she is also amazing." When Rose was 3, Harper found out she was pregnant again. This time the news came with less fear and more joy. the confidence of knowing they could handle the chaos of parenthood. Their son, Henry, arrived 2 weeks early, a calm and easy baby who seemed to sense he needed to balance his sister's intensity. He had Yates's dark hair and Harper's green eyes, and he was content to observe the world around him with quiet interest. "We are outnumbered," Yates said the first night they were home from the hospital with Henry, watching Harper nurse their son while Rose demanded a bedtime story. "We are," Harper agreed, "and it is perfect." It was not always perfect. There were sleepless nights and toddler tantrums and the constant juggling act of 2 careers and 2 children. There were moments when Harper felt overwhelmed and moments when Yates doubted his ability to be a good father. But there were also mornings filled with laughter, family dinners around their expanded kitchen table, and quiet evenings after the children were asleep when Harper and Yates would sit together and remember who they had been before parenthood and who they were becoming because of it. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Yates surprised Harper with a weekend away, just the 2 of them while his parents watched the children. They went back to Vermont, to the cabin where he had proposed. "I wanted to remind you," Yates said as they sat on the deck watching the sunset, "of where this all started, of the moment when you said yes despite all the reasons you thought we should not work." "I remember," Harper said, leaning into his shoulder. "You cannot be serious," I said. "But I was serious," Yates continued. "I was dead serious about loving you, about building a life with you, about proving that our differences did not matter compared to what we felt for each other." "You were right," Harper admitted. "It has not always been easy, but it has been worth it. Every single moment. Even the 3 a.m. feedings, especially those," Harper said, "because we did them together." Yates pulled her closer, his arms around her as the sun dipped below the mountains. "I love our life, Harper. The chaos and the mess and the incredible gift of raising our children together. But I also love this, just us, remembering why we started this journey in the first place. Because you caught my champagne glass," Harper teased. "Because I looked up and saw the most beautiful, genuine, passionate woman I had ever met, and I knew I had to know her," Yates corrected. "Best decision I ever made. Proposing to me." "No," Yates said, kissing her temple. "Talking to you on that balcony. Everything else just followed from that first moment of connection." They spent the weekend hiking and talking and simply being together, reconnecting as the couple they had been before they became parents. It was restorative and necessary, a reminder that their marriage was the foundation everything else was built on. When they returned home, Rose ran to greet them with paint in her hair and a huge smile on her face. Henry toddled behind her, holding his grandmother's hand. Copper barked and jumped, his tail wagging frantically. "Welcome home," Yates's mother said, looking exhausted but happy. "They were angels." "That is a lie," Lily said, appearing from the kitchen. "Rose painted the bathroom wall and Henry discovered he can flush things down the toilet. But everyone is alive and relatively unscathed." Harper scooped up both her children, breathing in their familiar smell, feeling the weight of them in her arms. This was her life now, chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. Yates stood behind her, his arms around all of them, and Harper felt a wave of gratitude so strong it brought tears to her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Yates asked. "For being serious," Harper said. "For meaning it when you proposed, for fighting for us when it would have been easier to walk away, for building this incredible life with me." "Always," Yates promised, and Harper knew he meant it. Years passed. Rose started school and made friends easily, her outgoing personality and fearless nature making her popular on the playground. Henry was quieter, more introspective, content with books and building blocks. They were different but inseparable. the kind of siblings who fought constantly but defended each other fiercely. Harper continued her work at the hospital, eventually becoming the head of the pediatric physical therapy department. She built programs and mentored new therapists, and still made time to work directly with patients, because that connection was why she had chosen this career in the first place. Yates stepped back from day-to-day operations at Irwin Industries when he turned 40, moving into a chairman role that gave him more flexibility and freedom. He focused on the aspects of the business he was most passionate about, the renewable energy initiatives and the medical equipment innovations, while trusting his executive team to handle everything else. Life is too short to spend it in meetings about quarterly projections, he told Harper. I want to be present for our family, to see our kids grow up, to have dinner with my wife more than once a week. They bought a house in Connecticut, close to Yates's parents and to the town where Harper had grown up. It was a sprawling old farmhouse with land for copper to run and a big kitchen that became the heart of their home. The penthouse in Manhattan became Yates's occasional crash pad when work required him to be in the city, but the farmhouse was where they lived, where they built their real life. On Rose's 10th birthday, Harper and Yates renewed their vows in a small ceremony in their backyard. It had been Harper's idea, a way to celebrate a decade of marriage and to include their children in the commitment they had made to each other. Rose and Henry stood beside them, holding flowers and grinning, as Harper and Yates promised again to love and support each other, to be partners in all things, to choose each other every single day. 10 years ago, you said you could not be serious when I proposed, Yates said, holding Harper's hands. But I was serious then, and I am serious now. You are the love of my life, Harper Irwin. My partner, my best friend, the mother of my children. I choose you today and every day for the rest of our lives. Harper was crying, of course, because she always cried at important moments. You are my unexpected gift, Yates, the man I never knew I was looking for until you caught a champagne glass and changed my life. I love you more today than I did 10 years ago, which I did not think was possible. Thank you for proving me wrong about so many things. They kissed while their children cheered and Copper barked, and their families applauded. It was simple and perfect and exactly what they both needed, a recommitment to the life they had built together. That evening, after the guests had left and the children were in bed, Harper and Yates sat on their porch swing, watching fireflies dance in the warm summer darkness. Happy? Yates asked. Ridiculously so, Harper confirmed. You, more than I ever imagined I could be, Yates said honestly. Sometimes I think about that night at the fundraiser, about how close I came to not going, to sending a representative instead because I was tired of those events. If I had made that choice, I never would have met you. The universe would have found another way, Harper said confidently. We were meant to find each other. You believe that? I have to, Harper said. Because the alternative, the idea that this all came down to chance and timing and a dropped champagne glass, is too terrifying. This life we have built, these children we are raising, the love we share, it has to be more than random coincidence. Fate, Yates mused. Or just really good luck, Harper said with a smile. Either way, I am grateful for every moment. Years continued to unfold. Rose grew into a passionate teenager who wanted to be a doctor, inspired by the stories Harper told about her patients. Henry discovered a love of engineering, building increasingly complex machines in the garage with his father's patient guidance. Harper and Yates grew older together, their hair going gray and their faces gaining lines that spoke of laughter and worry in equal measure. They celebrated anniversaries and birthdays, weathered challenges and celebrated triumphs. They were there for each other through aging parents and career transitions, through the chaos of raising teenagers and the bittersweet process of watching their children become independent adults. On their 20th anniversary, Rose and Henry surprised them with a party, inviting family and friends to celebrate 2 decades of marriage. Emma was there, now a physical therapist herself, inspired by Harper's work all those years ago. Marcus had retired but made the trip from Florida to attend. Lily brought her own family, 3 children who adored their cousins. Yates's parents, now in their 80s but still sharp and engaged, shared stories about watching their son fall in love. "I knew Harper was special the first time Yates brought her to dinner," Eleanor said during her toast. "He looked at her like she was the only person in the room, and she looked at him the same way. That kind of love, the kind that sees and values the other person completely, that is rare and precious." Harper leaned into Yates, feeling the familiar comfort of his arm around her shoulders, the steady beat of his heart against her side. 20 years, she murmured. "How did that happen?" "One day at a time," Yates said, echoing the promise he had made 2 decades earlier. "One choice at a time to choose us, to choose love." "Best choices I ever made," Harper agreed. As the party wound down and guests departed, Harper and Yates found themselves alone in their backyard, the remnants of the celebration around them. "You remember what you said when I proposed?" Yates asked. "You cannot be serious," Harper quoted with a smile, "and I said I had never been more serious about anything in my life." Yates turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. 20 years later, I stand by that statement. Loving you, choosing you, building this life with you, it is the most serious and important thing I have ever done." "I know," Harper said softly. "I know, and I feel the same way." They stood in their backyard, these 2 people who had met by chance at a fundraiser and built a love that lasted. Around them was the evidence of that love, the home they had created, the family they had raised, the life they had chosen together despite all the reasons it should not have worked. "Thank you for being serious," Harper said, the same words she had said 10 years earlier on their vow renewal. "Thank you for believing I was," Yates replied, and then he kissed her, a kiss that held 20 years of love and commitment and the promise of many more years to come. Their love story had started with a dropped champagne glass and a proposal that seemed impossible. But Yates had been serious, deadly serious about loving Harper Bennett with everything he had. And Harper had been brave enough to believe him, to take a chance on a billionaire CEO who saw her as an equal and loved her for exactly who she was. It was a love built on respect and partnership, on choosing each other every single day. It was tested by differences in background and complicated by the realities of merging 2 very different worlds. But it endured because they both fought for it, because they valued what they had more than they feared the challenges. Years later, when Rose and Henry asked their parents how they had made their marriage work for so long, Harper and Yates would share the same answer. They had chosen love over fear, partnership over pride, and each other over everything else. Every single day for decades, they had made that choice, and it had given them a life richer and more fulfilling than either had imagined possible. And it had all started with a woman who said, "You cannot be serious," and a man who proved with every action and every day that followed that he was absolutely, completely, irrevocably serious about loving her forever.